Hello and welcome to the Future of Quality Assurance. I'm Supriya Gondkar, and in today's episode, we are tackling one of the biggest challenges in software industry: why so many AI projects fail. But more importantly, we are going to talk about how you can learn from those mistakes and make your own projects a success. Joining me today are our expert guests, Mark Kramer and Archie Chaudhury. They'll be sharing their insights on how to build a winning AI strategy from spotting common mistakes to moving beyond the hype. Mark and Archie, welcome again. It's great to have you both here again.
Thanks for having us
Thank you for
back.
having me.
Yeah.
Yep.
In this series, we have already covered so far common user challenges, AI in software testing, Gen AI hype, and how to navigate through those noise, best practices for AI adoption. And today, we are going to cover real world user stories with business deliverables. Mark and Archie, I'm really excited to hear your customer stories. But before we start, if you want to access our previous episodes, you can click on the link provided on your screen. Now, let's dive in. We have spoken a lot about the unpredictability of Gen AI in the past. And Mark, I have heard you speaking about symbolic AI in particular. What's the difference between these two? And why is nobody talking about symbolic AI?
Good question, Supriya. Thanks. Clearly, GenAI has a spotlight. It is the industry darling, and what is special about it is it's available to everybody everywhere, and can be used to provide a lot of insight and valuable information. The interesting uh, components of the industry are that there's other types of AI that have evolved and actually been available over time that are very specific in terms of the functions that they perform. You know, visual systems, voice recognition, natural language, and symbolic AI, which uh, is really an application of AI for very specific functions, like software testing, and things like playing chess in other very specific applications, and that's why it really doesn't get the recognition in the market that GenAI has because of its uh, the specific functions that it addresses, and the fact that it's not readily available, to the general user. So Gen AI being generally available and with all the hype is really uh, providing this image of a magic pill and it solves all the problems. Well, interestingly, and the things that people need to look at when they're taking advantage of AI is, as you mentioned, the fact that Gen AI does not give consistent answers, and in software testing, you need consistency. So you got to look at and maybe take advantage of so other AI components that can deliver that consistency for you, and it might do it for a little less money. So, bottom line, choose your AI wisely.
Archie, what does this mean for you? I know you have solutions that compare Gen AI models. Do you also compare symbolic AI?
So we've actually increasingly seen symbolic AI and Gen AI being combined for specific use cases. As Mark said, Gen AI is not the most consistent. At its core, generative AI models are text generators, right? So they're generating text, or they're generating images, or they're just generating some form of content. Hence the name generative AI. This makes them not the best for higher end logical reasoning tasks that require certain logical parameters. So we've actually increasingly seen symbolic AI and generative AI being combined for specific use cases. And I think now there's not a symbolic AI model that is popularized for consumer use or enterprise use, but there is symbolic AI living underneath the hood. And one of the things we try to do is increasingly take the benchmarks we're using for Gen AI and actually running them against these sort of hybrid solutions that do both symbolic AI and generative AI. And often these hybrid solutions are they're generating content using generative AI, but the rule set or sort of the parameters within which the content is generated is dictated by some sort of symbolic solution.
So sounds like symbolic AI is more logical driven and the results are more predictable. All right. So, Mark, we would like to hear from you some case studies, some real user experience where you spoke about GenAI and symbolic AI. I'm sure you get a lot from your customers. So, do you have a case study that you can share with our audience?
Yeah, let me provide a little context. And, some of our viewers might be really surprised with the results that we've seen. First of all, the primary engagement that I have with our customers who want to embrace Gen AI are using Gen AI as a productivity tool, not as an integrated business role replacement tool. But that being where it's going, we'll talk about it a little later. But recognizing they're using it for productivity improvements. One of our customers, actually compared the symbolic AI solution tuned for software testing against Gen AI, and I suspect most QA organizations would probably be surprised that the symbolic AI implementation delivered 2x the productivity improvements over Gen AI. And you know what? It comes down to, as we mentioned before, consistency. And if you look at a number of the components that they were measuring, the quality of the tests and whether or not the tests were efficient and optimized and so on, it required a lot of review. But for generation, the reliability in terms of the fact that it was repeatable and consistent, and the XPath generation for automation. Interestingly, the symbolic AI solution was 3x more productive than the Gen AI solution because it had to be verified and viewed. So it's the results I think are interesting. If you want to see more detail, we're actually doing a webinar on September 30th, and you can come see us talk about that specific application in a lot more detail. But bottom line is the comparison is interesting, and you should be looking at those things before you jump in.
Those numbers are really impressive. Maybe we'll just put some content around this in the slides as well for our viewers. Archie, we are curious to hear your experience now. I know last time we spoke about the education, the guidance, and the hand holding. So, what kind of results have you achieved with your customers with that approach?
Yeah, so one of our first sort of major customers was actually, we're working with a client who's actually trying to build a generalized reasoning layer that makes it easier for current Gen AI models to solve the type of reasoning questions that they typically can't solve, right? And they're actually combining symbolic AI with generative AI in order to achieve this. So they're building a generalized symbolic layer, and they're enabling they're enabling generative AI models to better solve these questions through symbolic AI. And we actually helped this client autonomously execute over 10 benchmarks on our platform. And a lot of that was, hey, like they were aware of the value of the benchmarks, but for their customers and for their users, it's important to see, hey, this is how much of an improvement you get with using the symbolic reasoning layer on contemporary benchmarks. And we actually found that adding this symbolic AI to their GenAI solution not only helped them get better results on the reasoning benchmarks, but they also were able to get better results on the programming benchmarks. Their software agent actually performed a lot better when it was combined with symbolic AI, which was sort of what they were trying to prove. So I think that I wanted to highlight that because it sort of feeds into this conversation. But I think overall, we've worked with organizations of different sizes, organizations that are very GenAI native, that are aware of the benchmarks and evals, like this customer that I just mentioned. We worked with very large organizations who are much less aware of specific GenAI things, such as, why is benchmarking important? What are evals? What are data sets? And I think one thing that we're increasingly seeing is that line between LLM and frontier model and agent evals and benchmarking and traditional A/B testing is increasingly getting blurred. There's been a lot of discussion on social media and among the AI circle of what is the difference between traditional A/B testing, logging, and what we in the AI community call evals. And increasingly, the general consensus is there isn't a difference, and it's actually more similar than you might think. And the majority of products and services that are selling evals and testing and benchmarking are actually really selling a better form of logging and testing, right? So that sort of discussion has been sort of increasingly relevant to us, and it's sort of altered how we're pitching what we're building and pitching our solution to potential customers and prospects.
Yeah. So these numbers are really impressive. And on one hand, we have this QA expertise, and on the other hand, we have this AI expertise. So I want to ask both of you, how are you leveraging these strengths of both organization, and what does it mean for the end users?
Okay, so well, first of all, really good question. Secondly, that's the reason ConformIQ and LayerLens are getting together, because you've heard Archie talk about how you do the testing of the AI roles and and how it's done via evaluations, where from a traditional workflow, what happens is you're looking at fundamental business workflows that are predictable, reliable, and understood. And that's what we capture and use from a foundation standpoint that's repeatable and consistent from a software testing standpoint. And then if you're integrating and adding AI into that process, you can combine the two, so you can get the consistency of a symbolic AI and what Reggie what Archie mentioned about having a oh crap, sorry, I'm giving you a lot of work, Sriram. Where Archie talked about the during the evaluation and the functionality that may not be exactly clear. By integrating the two, you have the consistency of the symbolic AI in the workflows, and then the ability to test and assure the evaluation of the AI component in the combined application, as part of a testing approach. And that's what we're working on, from a joint collaboration and partnership point of view with LayerLens and ConformIQ. And Archie, I'm sure you can talk about how that integrates in with the the defined workflows and testing, the AI components and the intuitive components that need to be tested and validated as part of an evaluation in the overall application.
Yeah, thanks for the great explanation, Mark. I think the overall I think the way to think about this is they're really the same thing, right? So I think that's the sort of the main takeaway is, you know, generative AI is not going to be able to get away from having the same criteria as traditional testing, but we're also not going to get away from traditional testing in general because at the end of the day, the applications that you're serving using generative AI, it's not just a model, right, generating text. It is, there's a lot of different processes that go into it. And one of the trends that's increasingly been, espoused in generative AI discussions is, evals don't know the entirety of your product, right? So, the kind of testing and benchmarking that LayerLens does is sort of, can we test how well, from a performance standpoint, your agent or model is performing at a certain task, but we can't test how well users may interact with it. We can't test users' flows, right? That's where traditional testing, that's where traditional A/B testing comes in. So that's why we're partnering up with ConformIQ because this sort of coverage enables us to tackle both, right? It enables us to tackle the first part of the sort of testing process, which is, okay, is your model agent, is your infrastructure, right? Your core AI infrastructure performing in a way that's acceptable? And the second part is, okay, how can we actually test that? Okay, if it is performing, the users are actually able to interact with it with the way you assume they would, right? And that piece becomes very important for for how we're viewing this partnership, right? A major problem with how we view, with how the generative AI community views benchmarks and evals today is they're very detached from the actual product experience, right? They focus just on the generative AI piece of it, and they don't really go into actual user flows or actual user stories or how a user, where is the user going to click, and that's where this traditional testing becomes very important because now you can actually see what the user experience is going to be like and ensure that that's functioning and performing as expected. So that's where this combination becomes very.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I'd comment there because yeah, you're right on, Archie. And if you by doing integrated testing versus independent testing, what the expectation from your customers and ours is that the probability of having a successful implementation increases significantly. Yeah, and that's where looking at the whole picture, versus each component separately, delivers significant value to our customers implementing these types of solutions.
So, Archie and Mark, this is great. If the users want to know more about this approach, is there a way they can reach out or plan like a demo or something? And how do they know more about this approach?
Great question, Supriya. Yeah, actually, we've been collaborating with, we being ConformIQ, have been collaborating with LayerLens for a while, and understand the approach and how we can do this. And the plan is in Q4 to do a webinar together and show the concept that we've been talking about as part of this podcast. I'm looking forward to doing that with Archie and his team.
Okay, that will be really interesting. Uh, this was an amazing discussion. Thank you, Mark and Archie, for a deep dive into the world of AI and testing. Remember, this isn't a race to automate everything. It is a journey to make quality assurance more intelligent, more resilient, and more human. If you're ready to put this into practice, visit our website or reach out to us to explore on how our AI solutions can help you build smarter, more resilient test automation. Until next time, keep testing smart and building great software. Take care.